Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Arab Center, Washington. My name is Khalil Jahshan. I'm Executive Director of the Center, and I would like to welcome you to this special webinar today, focusing again on an issue that we have been focusing a lot of research and attention to at the Arab Center, similar to many other organizations and research centers focused on the Middle East, and that's the issue of annexation, the Israeli threatened annexation of Palestinian territories in the occupied West Bank. The exact title of our webinar today is Annexation Update, Internal Israeli Dynamics. And as you all know, definitely the situation is not very stable as we look at the news today. Israel is facing a long list of challenges, prompting it or influencing its decision not to implement or start implementing its annexation as threatened on July 1. And we are trying to explore today as to why, what's the nature of this delay, what prompted it, and what's the political map, if you will, in Israel with regards to annexation. So as we look at the news today, Israel, as I said, is facing a long list of challenges, including the surge, very significant surge in COVID-19, serious economic crisis that is related to it, violent demonstrations accelerating and increasing in different Israeli cities, the violent reaction of the government, reminiscent to some of our American cities in this regards. Add to that, to add insult to injury, some new tensions on the Lebanese-Israeli border this morning, and continuing communications issues, if not even more substantive than communications, in between the government in Israel, the Netanyahu government, and its allies at the White House regarding how to proceed or when to proceed with the annexation. And to help us decipher all these issues, we are very delighted and honored to have a good friend joining us today, and that's Dr. Honaida Ghanim. Dr. Ghanim is a Palestinian sociologist and anthropologist. She serves as the General Director of the Palestinian Forum of Israeli Studies, one of the very few, actually, Palestinian centers focusing on Israeli politics. It is based in Ramallah, and she has been affiliated with the center and directing it since 2009. Honaida has published various articles and studies in the fields of political and cultural sociology and gender studies in Israeli and Palestinian societies. She is the author of Reinventing the Nation, Palestinian Intellectuals and Persons of Pen in Israel between 1948 and 2000. That was published by the Hebrew University in 2009. She's the editor of On Recognition of the Jewish State, which was published by her own research center, Madar, in 2014, and co-editor of On the Meaning of a Jewish State, also published by Madar in 2011. Dr. Ghanim also was the chief editor of the quarterly journal, Qadaya Israeliya, Israeli Affairs, between 2000 and 2011, and also served as chief editor of Madar's strategic report since 2009. She holds a PhD with distinction from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and has lectured in various universities in Palestine. We have asked Honaida to spend 15-20 minutes discussing in general the situation in Israel, the rationale for the postponement of the annexation plans in Israel, and basically what are the, like I said, the political spectrum, the political map in Israel, which has not received enough attention here, particularly here in Washington, where the media has focused on one or two aspects of that, but not necessarily on where things stand in Israel, in the Israeli, political sphere. And so we're delighted to have her, and we'll go ahead now and turn the microphone over to Dr. Ghanim. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and I'm really delighted and happy to be with you today. This is a great opportunity for me to be even virtually at the center, Markaz Al-Arabi, the Arab Center. Okay, I will try to give a picture of what's going on now regarding the annexation. As you know, Benjamin Netanyahu said that he will start the process of annexation July 1st, and that day has now come and gone, but nothing happened. The intensive Israeli political and public occupation, daily occupation with the annexation, and fall into silence. Like, we don't hear anything about the annexation anymore since maybe the 2nd of July. So what happened? Why? To answer this question, I would like to talk about four main points which help us to shed light on the and to understand what's going on, to answer this question. The first one is the context of the annexation, and mainly the relation of the annexation to the deal of the century and the coalition in the Israeli government side, especially between Gantz and Netanyahu. The second one is the internal Israeli dynamic, more specifically the opposition to the annexation plan. And the third will be the disagreement. It's turned out that there is some disagreement between the Israeli and the American administration, allies. And fourth, I will end with the current situation. I choose to end with the current situation, which is the economic crisis and the eruption of really a big, enormous even social protest in Israel, with a new nature of this opposition. And I will be ending with asking, so what is the future of the annexation? Are we witnessing the end of this grandiose program, or just a delay? I will start with the context. As you know, on July 20, and after a long year of political stagnation, 3 rounds of elections, and a deep internal polarization, and as a result of the outbreak of COVID-19, Gantz and Netanyahu have signed a coalition agreement to form a united government. And in accordance with the agreement, and during its first 6 months, the government shall only focus on coping with COVID-19 and its health dimensions, economic implication, and social impacts. The coalition agreement mainly includes detailed arrangement regarding the division of ministries, job, official rules, and in addition to two political articles related to Trump's vision of peace and the Israeli plan of annexation. Noting that Article 29 of the coalition agreement explicitly allows for unilateral annexation of the West Bank territory and for the application of Israeli sovereignty to West Bank settlement to begin in July 1st. Thus, the mentioned article left no doubt, including this Article 29, the Section 29 article left no doubt that the new government is heading toward imposing the Israeli sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territory. The rationale that was behind Netanyahu's insistence to include the annexation in the coalition agreement, and this despite, by the way, the pandemic crisis and despite the embarrassment of Kahol Lavan, includes, I believe, 3 points. The first one is the necessity to benefit from the window of opportunities under the Trump administration, and before, of course, heading to the coming election in the United States. The second one, the case, the corruption trial of Netanyahu, that and the risk that there is a risk in the end of the tunnel that he will end his political career in the prison. So he wants to lift something on the history box regarding Netanyahu. And the third one, of course, is the ideological commitment to the settlers and the far right vision that actually forming his electoral base. So the annexation, the annexation is based, of course, on the Trump vision that was announced at the end of January 2020. By the way, in order to support the election of Netanyahu. And in accordance to this vision, none of the Israeli settlements will be dismantled, whether they are located in the main settlement blocks or deep within the West Bank, to the east or to the east of the wall, where around 100,000 settlers live, including 14,000 settlers in 15 isolated settlements, enclaves deep in the territory of the Palestinian, that of the territory that will be part of the Palestinian state. These enclaves will be connected to a road network under the Israeli sovereignty. Moreover, of course, we are talking about airspace, external borders, or water resources, all will be under the Israeli control. So to achieve this promised vision of peace, Israel shall annex 30% of the area, see 17% of the Jordan Valley, I will not go into details about because I want to reach more the dynamics of what's relating the postponing of the annexation. But before, it's very important to clarify that when we speak about what we speak about when we are speaking about annexation as Palestinian, we are speaking about including populated Palestinians area and keeping them as island within the state of the land of Israel. But this area will be surrounded by 1,400 kilometers borders fence, meaning double the length of the current segregation wall. The second thing that guaranteeing and maintaining a segregation between Palestinian and Jews through a network of checkpoints, bypass routes, and walls. So to conclude, the annexation rationale will go and will be shaped in accordance to the fact in the ground, which in accordance, every area that has a settler, even one settler, no matter how isolated, is nominated for annexation. In other words, the settlers is the law. This leads me to the second point, the internal Israeli objection to Netanyahu plans. Trump plan is in general, and Netanyahu annexation in particular provoked a very serious internal opposition from the center-left political map, but not just, from the strategic security level, from the intellectual and public figures. And this opposition feed, I believe, in the postponing of the annexation for now, just for now. The common argument of the oppositions that the annexation, as I explained now, contain the seeds of ending the Zionist dream, lead to one-state solution, entangle Israel with the international organizations, increase the process of delegitimization of Israel and Zionism, and make it hard to defend Israel abroad and turn it to pariah state that gradually pushed into the end scenario of South Africa apartheid. So this is the nightmare of the Israeli who opposing for now the Netanyahu plan. Former intelligence chief of the Israeli army, Amos, as an example, I'm giving few examples. Former intelligence chief of the Israeli army, Amos Yadlin, warned in a speech that he gave at a demonstration against the annexation at June 24, a week before the supposedly annexation is start, about the security risk that would follow the annexation. In his speech, he said that Israel on a path to a one-state solution for nationalities, and add that annexation will not bring any strategic advantage, but it will bring with it great security risks, international pressures, and failure of legitimacy and morals. By the way, among the speakers, and in addition to Yadlin, were Major General Amos Gilad and former National Security Council Chairman Uzi Arab. The three counted among the mainstream security figures and representing the, what we call it, the rational establishment, Israeli establishment. Additionally, a security person expressed their fears that the plan cannot be implemented. From a security perspective, the plan demands, for example, protecting borders of around 1,400 kilometers of border, which is realistically is almost impossible. Strategically, the annexation of the Jordan Valley explicitly, but also in actual risk, the security accomplishment that the peace agreement with Jordan provided to Israel. The agreement gave Israel a strategic depth of 350 kilometers, which is Jordan, that is being put at risk for 15 kilometers, which is the Jordan Valley, which is the width of the Jordan Valley. In the political level, Gantz Ashkenazi, who's the head of the Kachol Lavan, blue and white, their opposition, it's not a principle. It's relating to the timing now, and they are worried to the relation with Jordan. They believe that if we want annexation, and yes, they want annexation, at least of the Jordan Valley, we should do it with arrangement with our neighbors, with Jordan and with the friends in the international level. By the way, an unexpected opposition to Trump plan and the annexation intentions comes also from the top settler leaders and the Jahshan council head, which means the council of the settlements in the West Bank, David al-Hayyani, who said he has a duty to speak out against what he sees as an existential threat to Israel, and that any vision that talk about a Palestinian, any vision that includes talking about the Palestinian state is a threat to Israel, and he will not accept it. So he sees his duty to talk about, to take against a Trump plan. But it's important to add here that Al-Hayyani view was faced also by strong criticism from the side of the settler who rejected his viewpoint and pushed toward a fulfillment of the annexation. Meanwhile, while July 1st was approaching, more and more European leaders, international organizations, Congress Democratic members, close friends leaders of Israel, such as Boris Johnson, King Abdullah, and many others, expressed their opposition also to the annexation. Normalization with the Arab world, with the Gulf countries, was also in danger, according to the United Arab Emirates ambassador at the US, Youssef al-Afebi, who wrote an article in Yediot explaining this. The third point is that I will talk about is the disagreement between the Israel and the American delegation, and maybe most likely also a shift in Trump priorities. In April and in May, the annexation seems to be unavoidable, and that the Trump administration is determined to support the annexation. In June, cooling process was evolving. This was related, in one hand, to the internal American, which you, of course, know better than me, but it's related to the internal American situation and to the lack of agreement between Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, because we should take in our account that according to the American administration, condition support of the annexation in an agreement between Gantz and Netanyahu, which was not achieved until July 1st. This is the first thing. In the internal, of course, American level, the shift in Trump priority in light of the coronavirus, the economic crisis, the protest following the killing of George Floyd, etc. Also, it's look like that it has its impact on the shifting priority. And in the other hand, and Israeli side did not reach any agreement regarding the detail of the annexation. This, I believe, play a major reason of delaying the annexation. In June 30, Netanyahu met with the US Ambassador David Friedman and Special Middle East Envoy Avi Berkovich a day ahead of the annexation beginning, and indicated after a meeting that he would miss the July 1st target date. Of course, explain this. I spoke about the question of sovereignty, which we are working on these days, and we will continue to work on the coming days, Netanyahu said shortly after the meeting. Gantz at the same day that Israel needs to move ahead on the Trump plan with partners from the region and the international backing. Okay, the fourth thing, so all of this internal dynamics, opposition of the different level, the political, the security, the public, in one hand, the real fear that Israel is the annexation will end the Jewish Zionist state, will heading toward one state, will end with an apartheid in the ground. It seems it's a play a rule, but additionally to this, I believe, and here I come to the fourth point, the current situation of the economic crisis in Israel and the eruption, as I said, of the social protests. While Israel media and politicians were preoccupied with the annexation and with the international response and diplomatic engagement regarding the annexation, a various public survey among Israeli was showing that the main issue that matter for the Israeli is the economic crisis. Israeli being busy with the economic situation, with their life, with their daily life, and having a lack of interest in the annexation case. According to a survey conducted by Israeli news channel 12, only 4% of the Israeli are showing interest in the annexation plan. 4%. Another survey by Ma'arif newspaper showed that only 15% of the respondents fully supporting the annexation in accordance to Trump plan. Third of the response opposed the annexation. 27% of the respondents said they are in favor of implementing the annexation, but not under Trump's plan, which allows, among other things, the establishment of the Palestinian state. And in addition, 9% of those supported annexation exclusively in the Jordan Valley. So the picture is very complicated, and Netanyahu is a very good listener to surveys. So I believe the 4% not interested with all now the eruption of the social protest played also was of impact. in the ground, we have now a second wave, much harsh, of coronavirus, the threat of a new lockdown becoming more and more imminent, and the economic and social impact of the coronavirus became the center of the Israeli agenda. And by the way, the rate of the unemployment in Israel is 22%. After what the end of 2019 was 5%. So imagine this gap from 5% to 22%. The annexation talks disappear for now from the public sphere, and the protest and the fear of economic crisis sees the attention of everybody. When we are watching the TV now, we see almost in a daily basis the protest, which for now, including, by the way, what is important about this it's also includes supporter of Netanyahu. Yani a fraction of the population that used to be supporter of Netanyahu, core supporter of Netanyahu, additionally to a radical left. So now this is what is in the center of the Israeli attention, and nobody is talking anymore about the annexation. Today, Gabi Ashkenazi, the foreign minister, said the annexation, it's not the time. And now the question, what is the future of the annexation? And I will end with this. Most likely the annexation, from my perspective, is delayed but not cancelled, and its implementation depends in various factors. Two of them is very crucial, I believe. The first is the coming American elections and the relation, the evangelical pressure on Trump to support the Israeli annexation. For them, it's a very ideological matter, taking in consideration that in 2016 elections, 81% of the evangelical voters vote to Trump. We can expect that that will have a big impact on his decision regarding the support of the annexation. The second one is relating to the Israeli internal dynamic, including the involvement of the social protest and Netanyahu, the Netanyahu trial and its development. For Netanyahu, the annexation become a ready escape route that he can use anytime. Moreover, he can continue this is what is the most important thing. Even if he freezing or canceling now the annexation, he can continue the colonization of the Palestinian land while presenting the freezing or the postponing of the annexation as a great concession from his side. So he is benefits in every level. I'm ending now. I'm giving the floor for questions, or if anybody has any question, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghanim, for your presentation. You have shed some light on the internal dynamics in Israel with regards to the annexation, as to who supports, who is against. And some of the facts that you mentioned are new even to me, who observes these events almost on a daily basis. I was particularly stunned by the numbers in terms of some of the public opinion, in terms of Israeli interests being as low as 4%, with an additional 14 kind of extending support on a conditional basis, if you will, to that. So this is a very interesting factor to take into consideration. in our analysis. Let me, while we're waiting for audience questions, let me invite the audience to use the Q&A section on your Zoom website to send your questions. We're beginning to receive some. And you can also send your questions via email to arabcenterdc.org, and they will be transferred to me to read to our guest for her comment or answer. Let me begin with asking the following question. Based on what you said, that the annexation right now, what happened on July 1 is essentially a delay, but not necessarily a cancellation of this project. Is annexation by Israel of Palestinian land in the West Bank still stoppable from your perspective? And the other aspect of this question is, why can't the Palestinians have some kind of a role in this opposition to annexation? It seems like they haven't had a sufficient impact on this. How do you see those two issues?
First of all, if it's stoppable, yes, of course, I believe it's stoppable. And by the way, postponing the or not starting the implementation of the annexation by July 1st is an indicator that it is possible. It's possible to stop it. This give us the mark that it is possible to stop it. I believe that one of the major factor that can stop this is the international clear position of objection to the annexation, and not just talks, but also it was also a threat. It's not exactly a threat, but it's the talk about sanctions, that the annexation can possibly lead to a sanction. This play major also effect on the Israeli decision. If Israel can go to the annexation without paying any price, so they will continue. But in a situation that if they start the implementation, but they face a real opposition and objection and a real sanction from the international community, that play a very major role in stopping the annexation. This is the first thing. As the Palestinian, the Palestinian, by the way, I believe that the PA and Abu Mazen in specifically claim that if Israel will annex the no matter how much of the space, he will dismantle the PA. By the way, he was serious about this. He was serious, and I think that this, regardless if I think this is smart or not, but this can also was one of the factors that at least played role in the international level to take it seriously, all the annexation matter. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Okan Arikan regarding the differences or divisions, internal divisions within Israel regarding annexation. And his question is, do you see a potential for a much more robust political polarization within Israeli society, or is what we're seeing is it? Is it going to, in other words, go up or not? And the second question related to that, differences like between these different parties or camps in Israel, Meretz and Shas on the other side, are these usual, differences and contentious political, or is it unique to this particular crisis regarding annexation?
look, there is a historical transformations in the Israeli internal structure, political structure, social structure, that has its impact on the overall political landscape. If we want to compare the political division and the political okay, the division, polarization. It's very complicated. Before 2-3 years, you can say this is right, this is center, this is left. And of course, we are talking here just relating to the conflict, not to other dimension of meaning of left and right. In Israel, who's supporting a two-state solution or a kind of a settlement with the Palestinians counted to be a left, who's against counted to be right, and the center. Before 2-3 years, you can make this map. You said this against, this yes. The right is in the side of Netanyahu, and the left and the center in the opposition. But if you look at the Israeli map today, you can't make this you can't make this cognitive map. You have in the opposition a far right of Habayit HaYehudi, of settler supporter Bennett and Sheked, and a far right of secular right of Lieberman. And you find in the other in the coalition a kind of a left views in the government of Netanyahu, and I'm meaning the Labour Party, as if it's 2 members, but that's the situation. So what I'm saying, that the political map is mixed, but in other level, you have a very deep polarization in the Israeli society between religious, secular, between left and when I'm talking left, I'm talking left, radical left, and what they call it, even the old-fashioned elite of the Israeli, and with the new elite that is trying to, which mainly is what we call it the new right, the Israeli new right elite, which is controlling, trying to take control of every level in the Israeli society. If this pluralization can be more deep, I believe that the protests in the last 3-4 weeks, yes, say, yani, giving a great direction that this is endearing, and the polarization that we see now in the Israeli society is unprecedented, even in the age of the assassination of Rabin at 1995. It's more strong, it's more extreme, it's more radical. I hope that I answered.
Yeah, that's fine. Abdul Hamid Siam would like to know about the Palestinian citizens inside Israel. As we all know, their ratio of the population is about 21%. Ignoring 21% of the nation in the United States has all kinds of serious political implications. Does that apply to Israel? What role do they have, Palestinian citizens of Israel? What role do they have in making basically annexation more difficult or even impossible?
But the deal of the century, if there was something, let's say, critical regarding the Palestinian in Israel is including them in the plan of Trump. For the first time, Israel was very clear in its relation to the Arab citizen inside Israel as something that is not really taken seriously as a citizens. And in the Trump, which by the way, almost every Israeli know that it was written by the Israeli, even the language, even the terminology that was used is very Israeli, and there is articles I can send them about this. So you are negotiating about the supposedly being your citizen. The immediate impact was the high percentage participating in the election of the Knesset, and the rising of the representation of the Palestinian inside Israel at the joint list. It was something very unprecedented, even in the percentage of the Palestinian who was participating in the election. And that was also a say against the Trump plan. I believe that the overall situation of the Palestinian, not just inside Israel, but in the overall, is not in its best. We are facing the split in Gaza and Ramallah that's weakening the Palestinian situation. Inside Israel, they are fighting for, struggling for being citizen, first of all, in the Jewish state. The nation state bill that was the basic law of Israel as a Jewish nation state that was in 2017 give a very good indicators that the Palestinian citizen was actually moved and removed from the demos of the state, actually, which is no demos, it's ethnos, not a demos. Their role mainly in pushing, in advocacy, and demonstrations. Yeah, let's say that the situation did not reach the point of a serious point of implementation, but I really believe that the annexation plan and the Trump plan has a strategic influence relating to the future rules of the Palestinian inside Israel. What the annexation created is a new dynamic. What is coming after the annexation plan and the Trump plan is no way will be the same as before. In this case, I'm talking about the Palestinian as part of the overall solution or settlements, give them in a strategic future or a rule to be kind of a bridge in remaking the space of a new solution. I believe that what we have now in the ground is a state of apartheid. It's totally a state of apartheid. And with all the demographic and the settlements and the change inside the West Bank, the coming back to a kind of two-state solution become more and more difficult. In this in this context, the Palestinian inside Israel will have a crucial role to play.
Okay, we have a question from Alan Malkus. How seriously does Netanyahu take international opinion, aside from the United States? Is the international community having any impact at all at this point?
I think that, you know, he take them, يعني, he would love to hear Johnson saying, that's not bad, Steve. يعني, but it's not that we believe. In accordance to the Netanyahu different statements, in different speech, everything, it's obvious that the only side that he's taking seriously is the United States. And the only reason that is now stopping the annexation is the the disagreement with the United States. This is the only matter side for Netanyahu. No international, European, yeah, but mainly the United States. In addition to this, what he takes it seriously, I believe, is the starting process of sanctions. If sanctions is starting, he will take it seriously. Because that is, yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next question by Hashim Sharif. You referred in your remarks to the corruption case against Netanyahu. Will that have a negative effect? I think you touched on it, but if you'd like to expand a little bit more on his chances for re-election and the role of that corruption trial, if it starts as anticipated in January, with some preparatory hearings, I guess, taking place between now and then. Will that impact the future of Israeli policy?
Netanyahu made a great job while he was in the prime minister. He cut the head of any leader that can be really شو بسموه منافس لإله.
Any competition. He stopped all the competition. Yes.
He stopped any leader that can be really a competition for him, cutting all the heads. For now, he was also very lucky, and I don't know if he was smart, but he for sure was lucky with the coronavirus. And the dismantling of the opposition of Kahol Lavan. Now, if he is going to election, and many now talking about maybe a fourth election in November is possible. So he will go to the election with no competition in the Likud, no competition in the other side, because he actually destroyed, smashed the opposition. And in that's from this side, he is so lucky that not he is a genius, but that there is no alternative for him, not in the opposition and not an internal in the Likud. By the way, he's pushing toward the election. But before the beginning of his trial will start at the beginning of the next year, and he will be 3 days a week in the trial. Okay, so if he want to go to election, he will go in November.
Okay, Muhannad Salahi, thanks you for your presentation, and has a question. When the Israelis that you described, there are divisions for pro and con with regards to annexation, but in general, how does the Israeli public look at the Palestinians? I mean, should annexation go through, what's going to happen to the Palestinians involved in that? Is this going, are they thinking of the aftermath, the day after? Is there going to be what, a federal option, a binational state? What's going to happen to these people that are involved, the Palestinians that are involved in the annexation process?
Well, the main proposal, actually, the only proposal in the table regarding the Palestinian who will remain in this in the annexed area, that they will continue to be a Palestinian citizens, and the network of the roads will connect them to their state. No talks now about giving or include them in the, or giving them Israeli citizenship. This is not on the table or on the agenda. Maybe some thousands in the Jordanian Valley, that will be impossible to find a solution for them, or network roads networking. But what in the table is to annex the land without the Palestinians. That was the rationale of the colonial project since the beginning of Zionism. That's what is continuing until now. More land, less Palestinians. So they were not going to give them any, will not include them in the demos, in the citizenship, and give them equality. And no, there will be a presence actually in their enclaves on Bantustan, in what they so-called the potential space of the potential Palestinian state, that of course will not be established, because in order to give them this state, the Palestinians should make so many different conditions that just a superhero can do it.
All right, I'm going to try to squeeze, with our limited time left, several questions. If you could give me like a 2 to 3 minute answers to these, so that we can cover as many of the questions as possible. First, we have Ramiz Tomi is asking about the, do you believe that if the annexation takes place as planned by Israel and the United States, will that, how will that impact the Palestinians in the West and Gaza? Will that impel the two camps to kind of reconcile or get back together?
It's a very, very difficult question.
Nothing has thus far, but will this one change the dynamics internally within Palestine?
I believe that the dynamics in Palestine, there is a talk now. There is so many talks that they are going to now to have sit and to find and to end all the dispute between them and the conflicts, and make life again possible between them. I believe that something happened in this 10 years that restructure the split in the institutions, and make it really not the annexation will be the, and I'm honestly talking, not the annexation will be the thing that will push toward ending the fragmentation, the split inside the Palestinian, between the Palestinian, between Gaza and the West Bank. Yeah, it's very complicated. I don't want to go in this now, because it has so many levels. But I don't think that the annexation is the thing that will end the fragmentation.
Okay, we have a question from Saeed Ariqat from Al-Quds. He is asking, how come we haven't seen a solid, organized response on the Palestinian side in terms of combating, if you will, or fighting back against annexation. Similar, I think what he refers to, probably similar to the committees formed and the NGOs' role during the first Intifada, you know, taking an international articulate, if you will, help articulate the Palestinian position and reaching out to the international community. We haven't seen any kind of public sentiment, if you will, public expressed in that sense.
Yeah, it's relating partially to the trust between the Palestinian people and the leaders, the PA leaders. There is something after 25 years of negotiation, of Oslo, of promising that we are very close to the solution. We are continuing in one way, which is the peace process. People lost the trust in the road of 25 years. They lost the trust. They are not hurrying to go after the Palestinian leaders in what they are asking them to do. This is the first thing. The second thing, I believe that the impact or the response to the annexation plan and to the Trump plan is something that is in building. I believe that it's not fair to ask why it did not all the people, why all the people did not go out and say that they are. Things is not going in this way, not in the first Intifada and not in the second Intifada and not in even during the Palestinian history. It's building in. It's now also the need of the Palestinian to reevaluate what next. Do we want to cancel or to postpone and this is the very dangerous thing, to cancel and freeze the annexation and make this as a big victory of us and as a big concession of Netanyahu and continue with the occupation. What we achieved, is this what we want to continue on, or we should reevaluate the Palestinian situation, but not reevaluate the peace process, reevaluate everything, the role of the PA, the role of the PLO, the relation between the different fragments of the Palestinian people. And when I say a Palestinian people, I mean the Palestinians inside Israel, in Gaza, in the diaspora, and in the West Bank. All of them, as the people of the Palestinian, reorganize themselves in order to really face this situation. And that's why when you ask me about Fatah and Hamas and Gaza and Ramallah and all this situation, I said, we need something new in a way of re-evaluation everything and building a new strategy in order to go and toward something new with the current institution and the Palestinian establishment. It is very hard to me to believe that we can really go out from not just stopping the annexation, but ending the occupation. This is the main issue here.
The risk of going over time just a little bit, let me conclude with this question related to the reevaluation or the reassessment that you just mentioned in your answer. I remember about 4 weeks ago, a month ago, in an interview that you did on this subject, you talked about the annexation maybe presenting some kind of a unique political moment. You said an opportunity to bring the struggle back to basics or to return to its roots. Could you explain that? What do you mean? Is that what you mean by the reassessment, going back to the roots?
Of course, because this is partially this is partial, because when you come and say, okay, we are going now to make the apartheid, by the way, de facto, to apartheid de jure, and to suggest to the Palestinian a Bantustan and call it a state. When you put all the Palestinian in a situation that this is the world, this is the end, a dead end of their dream. This is the time also to reevaluate not just where we are, where we want to go out of this, but it's impossible to go back to what was built in 1995, because the Israeli government make it impossible, okay, with this, what they call it, fact in the ground. So it is the time to reevaluate the Palestinian National Project. The Palestinian, by the way, when I say the Palestinian National Project, I said the Palestinian National Project and vision that will include also a vision of a relation with the Jews, with the Israeli, with something that can solve all the hierarchical, ethnical, and segregation situation in whole Palestine. And let's remember, when we are talking about annexation in the West Bank, when we talk about the apartheid in the West Bank, we are not just talking about apartheid in the West Bank, but an apartheid now in historical Palestine, where you have 14 million people, but one ethnicity, one nationality have the superiority, control, and shaping and engineering everything in order to serve one nationality and to subordinate the other. The Jewish nation state was also a very important movement that in deepening the apartheid structure, in putting all the Palestinians inside the green line and outside it in one basket, and trying to reshape all the regime and his tools of control in accordance to the superiority of one group. So yes, it's returning us to the beginning again. It's a struggle against colonization, settler colonialism, and to a point that no justice, no peace. That's what they call it, peace. The Trump is no peace because there is no justice.
Okay, I'm going to combine the last two questions together for you. We have a question from Amy Schwartz and one from Samer Al-Atout, essentially asking two related things, but which you could combine in your answer. In terms of the new revolt that is being faced by Netanyahu on the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and other places today, are we seeing the seeds or the beginning of a new progressive movement that might rethink or reimagine the situation in Palestine as in the terms that you just described? And what's the role of the Arab-Israeli joint list or Arab-Israeli parties in that?
By the way, that was one of the questions that I asked MK Aida Touma 2 days ago when we hosted her in Madar. What is the joint list roles? What do you think about this demonstration? And her answer was that they are participating actually, and they are calling the Arab citizens to participate in this demonstrations. I don't know how really they will have a rule. Sometimes, you know, to delegitimize in Israel, to delegitimize a demonstration, it's enough to say you have Arabs among the protesters. And by the way, that was Netanyahu claims 3-4 days ago that Ayman Odi was in the demonstration, and that's here we have the sign that this is led by the enemy the state and Netanyahu and illegitimate organization. So anyway, but the nature of the protester this time, I think that there is something new. There is something new, but it's still early to have to conclude whether this will evolve to something really serious. And but there is something new is evolving. Something new. The nature of the, and by the way, how strong and going and even blocking main streets and clashes with the police is something that we did not see in other political demonstration. We see it in the Ethiopian demonstration, we see it with the Palestinian demonstration, but with Jews Israeli demonstration, it is something new. Everything is depending really in what will happen also with the crisis, the economic crisis, and the COVID-19 impact on the ground. I hope that I answered. That's yeah.
That's fine, but let's take advantage of this positive note that there is something new, which is not common. It's somewhat rare, I guess, in this conflict. So to end our program today, Honaida, thank you so much for
thank you very much.
Your generosity in accepting our invitation and helping us to understand this very, very important development that's taking place with regards to annexation. I'd like to thank our audience, ladies and gentlemen, worldwide. We've had a very mixed audience today from all over. For joining us today. I hope you found this exchange that we have had today useful to you and informative, and we hope that you will join us again in future events. A video of this presentation will be available on our website in few hours, and you can, if you missed it or missed parts of it, you may watch it again, and it will be available also on YouTube and other social media outlets affiliated with Arab Center. Thanks again, and be well. Bye-bye.